Welcome back. Sunrise on this Monday morning with me, Eamon Holmes. I got the actor Ralf Little with me now, and Ralph has gone to South America, to Rio, which we associate with football, linking football to the education of young kids. And I thought that the figures were really disturbing, Ralph. 72 million children around the world remain unable to access primary school education.
Well, the reason I went out there, I'll be as brief as I can, but the reason I went out there was because in 2000, world leaders got together and made a very public promise to educate every child in the world, give them a decent education by the year 2015. And with 5 years to go, there are still, as you say, 72 million children who haven't even had a primary school education, along with millions more who have had to drop out of education for whatever reason. And education being the most surefire way to combat poverty, you know, endemically rather than handouts. It's obviously very important. So to that end, ActionAid, who I went out with, have teamed up with the World Cup coming up this summer. There is a FIFA-backed campaign called One Goal, and its aim is education for all. And basically, it's to sort of raise global awareness of this promise that was made and hasn't yet been fulfilled, and try and put pressure on world leaders to make good on that.
Well, look, okay, you went out to Rio. We associate that with football. We associate these youngsters with football. And here's what happened. This report now from Lisa Holland. Let's have a look at this.
Rio's poorest are pushed into hillside slums, almost within sight of the glamour of Copacabana Beach. It's a staggering divide between the city's haves and have-nots, but football is being used to try to bridge the gap, as ActionAid ambassador Ralf Little has come to find out.
The Brazilian favelas are very, very far. I remember learning about them when I was 10 years old in geography, and obviously even it stuck with me then, so I've always wanted to see them.
This is Brazil's best-known shantytown, alluringly named City of God to draw in new dwellers, but one of the last places on earth anyone would want to live.
It's a rubbish dump right next to all the houses. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, you can't tell, but it smells really bad, and there'll be rats all over it. And that's why they live, right here, right next to it.
Everyone wants to show Ralf Little their home, not through pride, but desperation.
The lady was just explaining to me that she lives in here, in this tiny little thing, and this is her bed here. And she has 5 children.
It's difficult finding money for food, let alone tyres for your bicycle. And even those with the best of scavenging skills find it hard to survive. Disease looks everyone in the eye.
It's just a really clear indication of what needs to be done. I mean, this is the real deal. These people have nothing, and even the homes that they live in every day, if it rains heavily enough, they literally get washed away. This shouldn't be happening anywhere in 2010. It really shouldn't.
But the shantytowns are a dangerous no-go area for outsiders. Only a fool ventures in without pre-arranged permission from those who run the streets.
60% of Rio's shantytowns are still completely controlled by drugs gangs. The police are working to pacify areas like this, but it makes setting up education programs even more complex.
A way forward is through football. Brazil gets the World Cup in 2014, and this year's event in South Africa is being used to back a campaign for global access to full education for all children.
You get a load of kids here interested, and then you can start saying, listen, why don't you come down to the school, to the education programme as well? And suddenly you've got a whole generation of kids off the street.
A pledge by world leaders to deliver a quality education to all by 2015 is looking increasingly unlikely to be achieved. They haven't been entirely forsaken, but the children of the City of God need all the help they can get. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Rio.
So many things to talk about now off the back of that. The first thing, it's those children's faces, the happiness of those faces despite having nothing.
Oh yeah, you know, their spirit remains undaunted, and they're all full of smiles and fun, and they're a joy to be around, which just kind of brings it home all the more. I mean, the truth is, I'm not the kind of person that's particularly given to, you know, tears and emotional displays. But when I was talking into the camera there, the conditions that they live, I've never seen anything like it. And I've been out to a few places like that, and it really is. It's shocking.
Well, you summed it up and you said nobody should be subjected to conditions like this in the year 2010.
Yeah, not in the modern era with what we have. And you know what? I've seen charity appeals and stuff over the years, and it's very important to say, I think, that realistically, you know, anybody watching this might think, well, yeah, I'm not about to sell my house and my car and give all my money away to charity, but that's unrealistic because we all have a life to live as well. But it might just be that anybody watching this, you know, could just give up 1 packet of cigarettes a month and donate that £5 to ActionAid instead, or I don't know, 2 Starbucks or 2 pints per month. Give a £5 to ActionAid, and if everybody who was watching that did that, who was watching this now did that, then it would make very little difference to us and a huge difference to them.
One of the things that surprises me is when I talk about Brazil or Rio, I think, oh, the home of football, beach football, all that sort of thing. And yet you've got to bring the message of football to these kids. Why is that? I mean, it's hooking them and it's bringing them for the message and into education the way you want it. But why is the message not out there?
It's a very good point. And what ActionAid are doing out there in this community centre that I visited with these kids, it's a very, very clever thing, because in the poorest areas, the idea that they might have time to play football when they're struggling to even eat and have clean water. You know, it's not a priority, but what this community centre do so cleverly is kids are the same the world over. So if you speak to a group of 9-year-old or even 15-year-old boys and say, listen, come and get educated, chances are they'll look at their mates and be like, oh, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
If you say, come and play football, they turn up, they feel part of a team, they feel better about themselves, they feel like they belong to a gang, but a safe gang rather than a street gang. And then once they feel like citizens of this team, then they say, how about an education as well? And it's a very, very clever way of reaching people.
Look, this all looks very relaxed. There's you showing your silky skills and whatever there against 10-year-olds.
Do you know what? I really had to stop myself getting over-competitive, because as soon as it turns to football, I get a bit silly, and I was like, right, these kids are only young, some of them are malnourished, don't elbow them in the face.
No, don't. But talking about being elbowed in the face, to actually organise that, you've got to get permission to be in there and play and bring the message.
Oh, to go into these areas, these favelas, you need, absolutely, you need permission. You have to go, because, you know, some of the areas are run by gangs and drug dealers, and I mean, that's the reality of it. So we had to go and say, listen, our representative had to go and say, these guys are filming, they're good people, do you mind? And the community little area that we had to go in would say, yes, that's acceptable, or sometimes no. And sometimes we had to move on very, very quickly, because, you know, I never actually saw any violence, but it was made very clear to us that the threat of it was possible.
Well, Ralf, good luck on all you're trying to do with ActionAid as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks
indeed.
very much for
and
the
I hope
time.
you and they enjoy the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.